The holidays, a time to give to others and yourself. At Metro, buy a select Samsung Galaxy or LG and get a second free with an unlimited LTE plan. We're talking massive HD screens, up to 64 gigs of memory, and an incredible 16-megapixel camera. It's happy holidays for you and them. Stop by Metro today. Metro by T-Mobile. Plus sales tax and activation fee. Free phone must be on new line of service. Phone free after all instant rebates. Free phone of lesser or equal value. If congested, the fraction of customers using more than 35 gigs per month may notice reduced speeds. And Metro customers may notice reduced speeds versus T-Mobile due to prioritization. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the World Class Mentors. We're a radio show and podcast celebrating the people who have achieved world-class status through sharing their stories and honoring their mentors. Today, we have a real treat for you. Name is Cheri Sigmon, and talk about a fireball. You have never met one until you've met Cheri. How are you, Cheri?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Tony.
Let me give him a little background. I like the way you wrote it, but I'm going to read it just the way you told me. Cheri Sigmon is a certified information system security professional, but don't let that fool you. She has worked in places that I can't even mention because they're so top secret, but I know it's Department of Defense, the Joint Chiefs of Staff. My gosh, you're a Cambridge who's who of executives, National Association of Professional Women. And you're on the board of director of the ISSA, the Information System Security Association. And you've got the Virginia chapter as well, and you're a veteran. So welcome, Cheri, to our show. I am honored to have you here. You're Air Force veteran, huh?
Yes.
How many years were you with the Air Force? 6. Awesome. And what was your best of times there?
Oh, a lot of travel. I met some really interesting people and traveled all over the world, and just was able to contribute in some fun ways.
We met at a speaking conference, and there's no other way to say it. You are a business innovator. You are also a public speaker. You're an incredible SME, a subject matter expert on security and blockchain technology, which is a new thing. And on top of that, you have this wonderful retreat that we're going to talk about, a nonprofit for veterans. So I'm really excited to have you on the show, Cheri, and I thank you for giving us some of your time. Now, you advise executives globally. You assess a diverse array of cyber and information security risks, vulnerabilities, and attack surfaces. Can you tell me? That just blows my mind. Can you tell me what you do?
Well, it's essentially cybersecurity from A to Z, looking at risk from a perspective of what an organization has currently in place to reduce their risk posture, and come up with a remediation plan to, quote, fix those, remediate those, and reduce the likelihood that they'll either get hacked or embarrassed or otherwise compromised or degraded in terms of their business operations. So it's all about keeping the business running.
So you're the go-to person. Now I'm gonna laugh with you here. Every time I see you, you're with some superstar. I mean, whether you're with Gene Simmons or Claire Underwood, do they call you to fix their systems if something's wrong?
No, the times that you're talking about Gene Simmons and Bethany Frankel and Cheri Underwood, sometimes I consult with high net worth individuals and folks, but I never mention them by name. What I do is I like to make high quality connections, and I don't look at referrals. I look more at introductions, and people introduce me, and I introduce people. It's part of the whole mentorship thing and networking, and it's who you know and who they know. So I was introduced to those two people in particular, Bethany Frankel and Gene Simmons. They're my coach, J.T. Fox. So I give credit to him for that introduction. So it's not about referrals in terms of, hey, I know somebody who does this, go look them up, refer them. It's actually somebody who knows you and knows somebody else and thinks you should meet. So it's more about not networking or just referrals. It's introductions in the old-fashioned sense of the word introduction.
It sure is. And you know what it is, Cheri, is that you are so good at what you do that it's so easy to think of you as the go-to person, because that's what you do. I mean, you're just really, really great at what you do. Cheri, we talk a lot about world-class mentors on this show. So would you share who you think were your mentors and what got you to where you are now?
Oh, absolutely, and I can think of three in particular if you have time for three. There were three phases. One as an active duty.
We have three. We have time for three. Please go.
Okay, so I'll just give you a quick outline. The first was as an active duty Air Force officer, and the second would be as a DoD civilian, and the third would be as someone as a more an entrepreneurial type of approach. So the first one, back to the Air Force active duty days, was a chief master sergeant when I was a young green behind the ears, wet behind the ears second lieutenant, freshly commissioned and fresh out of college. I had a chief master sergeant to essentially put me in his hip pocket and show me around and told me to forget everything you learned in school, forget the textbook stuff, let me show you what you really need to know. And for the first year of my career, I followed him around and listened to everything he could teach me. And I had somebody like 30 years my senior, subordinate in the terms of structure, but tell you what, he really just, he educated me, if you will. So forget the formal education and how an organization really works, especially something as complex and as institutionalized as military, where you have a lot of unspoken culture and things that you should know to do, but you may not know to do. For one in particular, I was working late Friday, and I thought I should just stay working, and the colonel had a shindig, and he wanted everybody to come have a beer with him, and I just, I was new, and I thought, well, hey, work ethic, he'll appreciate my staying here and working hard. I was finishing a task that was due on Monday. I had plenty of time to do it, but I thought I should stay and put my nose to the grindstone, and then the colonel would appreciate that. So the chief came looking for me. He said, LT, you need to go socialize. Like, I didn't know that. I thought I was here to work. It's like, no, there's this unspoken culture. When your commander and your colonel says, hey, everybody, we're getting together, you need to come have a beer, you go have the beer. And you don't sit at your desk and work. And I was so naive and so green, I did not know that. I was totally socially inept in my first year on the job. So that was like very practical day-to-day thing he taught me. Other than that, it was talking to me about leadership, leading from the front, and making sure that you eat last, that your people eat first. It's like that whole quote about you feed your men, feed your horses, your men, then yourself. So he taught me a different style of leadership where you put your team's needs before your own, and it definitely was not a textbook type of leadership. So I credit Chief Master Sergeant for that. And moving on to civilian times, I pick at one particular. There was a female colonel I was working with at the Joint Staff. Her name was Colonel Veronica Smith, and she taught me more about staff work and how things get done at the Pentagon and how not to say things to people. The brass is like, there's a certain way you can be tactful and diplomatic, but firm at the same time. And I watched her finesse meetings and get things done, and she taught me as part of her support team how to do that, how she liked things written, how the senior staff, how the chairman liked things written, and would always tell me honestly if I wasn't quite on the mark, and just, hey, send this back, no, have you thought about this, have you thought about that, and I suggest this or I suggest that. It was never critical and never in front of other people. It was just like taking me person to person quietly and discreetly and saying, hey, you can improve this a little bit, and then the team will be ready to go, that sort of thing. So that was Colonel Smith, and I thank her for that. Moving on to the entrepreneurial journey, it's Stephanie Frank. You may know Stephanie. She's also a former cybersecurity professional, and she's been in her own business, written books, The Accidental Millionaire, and she is a powerhouse person, and she is a person that I talk to about personal and business things. And so I'd always encourage people to have mentors around them that they not only know, like, and trust, but they can talk to about whatever the topic of the day means. And the examples I've given, one was somebody who was subordinate to me on a team, but very instrumental in helping make me successful as a young officer who didn't really know much about the real world. And secondly, was Colonel Smith, who helped me survive the Joint Staff and make sure I had really 100% top quality products going out the door every single time. And then to Stephanie Frank, who helps me navigate business and personal issues and how to do the work-life balance thing. So those are my top three, and there are others along the way. There are too many to mention, but those are my top three in those three phases of my recent life. I hope that
Cheri, not only am I amazed with you as a person, because I absolutely love your personality and the way that you are just a real person, even though your day-to-day is involved in such amazing things that most people only can read about in newspapers. But if you're talking cybersecurity and someone in our audience, how do they know that they're in trouble? I mean, have they been, other than Facebook, asks for all your things and sends out weird emails to people, how do people know that they've been hacked?
Well, just a couple of brief tips in general. Look at if your machine is performing slowly, or if it's not just cluttered up with stuff and you haven't defragmented it in a while. If your connectivity is intermittent, or if you have sluggish issues, or basically just if things are running slowly or things are appearing that you don't normally recognize, is one way. The other is if you get a lot of phishing attempts or a lot of extra spam popping up, and then a lot of those will be the automated tools that your service providers may have that you might notice. And also, if you're on travel, this often happens on travel. Sometimes you will have an occasion where maybe you're in an airport or whatever public transportation hub you may be passing through, and there are people there who are snooping for information, and they'll tap into your mobile devices. They'll tap in that way, and so keep a close eye on them. And I highly recommend do not connect to public Wi-Fi, especially in transportation hubs, airports, that sort of thing. Just wait. Wait till you get to where you're going. And then there's
so all of these free airport, when you go to an airport, it says, we were offering you Wi-Fi for free. You're saying stay away with a big red flag?
Well, I don't do my personal business on there. I mean, if you're checking the weather or checking your flight status, but nothing that requires credentials where you log in. If you're just like web surfing,
right,
like checking flight status, but you could get that on the board. So that sort of thing, if the weather or something like that, but I wouldn't put anything personal or business or definitely proprietary out there on any public unencrypted Wi-Fi. Just wait. Or use an alternate tool.
But I mean, that's absolutely great news. Let me ask you something. So when someone gets a hold of you, I mean, how would they normally get a hold of someone like you?
Usually through an introduction. That I don't advertise what I do, and I pretty much stay in stealth mode. And discretion is the number one rule of the profession. So when people contact me for things like that, it's discreet.
I understand. I'm not going to. I'm not one of those kind of reporters. No, what I need to know though is now you've been asked to speak at a variety of different conferences, and you've got one coming up, don't you?
I do. Secure World.
Is that the cybersecurity one?
Yes, it's Secure World Atlanta in May, the end of May, in Atlanta. And I just did an executive panel in Charlotte back in February for Secure World Charlotte, and I'll be doing that. And there's a crypto economy summit coming up in May, and then something at Montreat College, teaching a course in the fall. We're working on content for that.
You are so busy. You're amazing. And Montreat College.
It keeps me out of trouble.
All right. So we've learned about who were your mentors. We've learned about how to figure out if you think you're being hacked or if you're in trouble, and get a hold of someone with the security clearance or designation. And then you're going to be speaking at a variety of different events. Most of them are Secure World, and then you're going to start teaching at a college, which is kind of fun as well. So I mean, you just I'm amazed at your energy. Now you have your legacy. Let's talk a little bit about what you're going to do here in the future, because I happen to know that you bought some property and that you're dedicating this to help returning and disabled veterans connect with their local business leaders and executives in order to make their transition to everyday life easier. And that's called the Safe Harbor Retreat. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I'm so excited about that, Tony. Thank you so much for asking me that. Yes, it's part of a legacy project, and it's something I'm working on. I hope it will become an open source project where people around the globe can actually do similar things in their communities. And the idea is, as you said, to connect local business leaders with veterans in their community to form a mentor-mentee relationship over time, and basically through a weekend retreat called the Safe Harbor Retreat Center. It doesn't have to be a physical space. I did buy land in North Carolina, in the western North Carolina mountains near Asheville, to build the first one, but it doesn't have to be a physical structure. It could be a leased space. It could be a hotel ballroom, anything like that, where people come together to connect the business leaders and the veterans to get them talking, and to bring in service providers, nonprofits, non-governmental organizations, to deliver services to them in a structured environment over a weekend. So basically, it's about making the connections and getting the dialogue going and assessing where their needs are now and what the to-be could be, or what that could look like. And the idea is to capture this process at the Retreat Center in Nashville and other venues across the nation, and have lessons learned, and have an online web-based portal where people can share their lessons learned and share ideas to fine-tune it like a typical open source project and make it even better, and then open that blueprint up to the world for free, so people can do it not only in our country with American veterans, but even our enemies and allies in other countries, because it affects people. It's a human condition thing. It affects people and families across the globe. So starting with our own, then to our allies, and even our, people that are considered our enemies, because it's a way to help people heal in general. So I'm really excited about that, and it's called Safe Harbor Retreat Center because that's what people are looking for when they're going through major transitions like that, and they're looking for a safe harbor, not in the financial services sense of the term, but safe harbor in terms of a safe place to go to recover and to heal and to move on to the next phase of their lives. And I've had people help me as I made my transition, and I want to pay it forward and help them, so that's my motivation for doing it. And it's not tied to me or my name, because it's not about that. It's about creating something of value and leaving it as a legacy to help as many people as possible. So that's what that's about. And yeah, we closed on the land in Asheville the end of January, and working with the developers and getting bids for building the first structure as we speak. Thanks for asking me about that. I'm so excited about it.
No, I know this is a heartfelt mission of yours, and I know it's a legacy that you're thinking of and that you've been planning forever, and that you've made a major investment in. And you know what? I think it's one of the best things I've heard about in a long time. So I love the Safe Harbor Retreat. I love the name, and I love the fact that you've already invested in some land and you're going to start putting this together. I mean, what a wonderful goal. It's just, I'm so impressed with what you're doing. So let me tell you what, Cheri, we've talked about yourself. We've talked about your how to figure out if things are wrong with your machine. We've talked about security world, where you're speaking, where you're about to start teaching, and we've talked about your legacy, which is your Safe Harbor Retreat. Would you like to share, I mean, if someone is thinking of either getting a mentor or becoming a mentor, can you share some ideas that you've got for people on how they can achieve that? What do they need to offer people for mentorship?
Oh, absolutely. And one thing I failed to mention was that through one of the fintech organizations that actually do represent, it's called ACP, American Corporate Partners, and a lot of the large American corporations have this, and they have a program where employees can volunteer through ACP, American Corporate Partners, to be a formal mentor for people. And in this case, I've mentored a couple of military veterans, gentlemen, and I just started with a lady, actually an enlisted gal, who was getting ready to go on a deployment, and we've had our first intake phone conference, and we're going to have another one here in the next couple of weeks from somewhere else in the world. So it's interesting what you can do remotely. So I would encourage somebody who's thinking about becoming a mentor to find a program like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be ACP, but something like that, maybe through your work or your entrepreneurs group or your Chamber of Commerce, whatever entity has business meetings where they have a program that can offer you something to hook into, so you're not just randomly doing it. There's a structure, there's a coordinator, there's a program to follow, there's extra resources if you need it, that sort of thing. But I highly recommend ACP for one example for corporate people. And what you need to do is just kind of share what you've done and what your goals are and why you want to be a mentor or a mentee. And then from there, the program coordinator will usually help you match with someone who can best benefit from where you are or where you want to be. Sometimes they want people to help them get referrals into companies and help them find jobs. Sometimes it's helping with the resume or interview skills or just skills development or which certification to get in terms of cybersecurity, that sort of thing. What do I want to do when I get out of the military, that sort of thing, or what's it really like, or what should I do before I leave is a common question I get. So in whatever your walk of life is, whether you're an entrepreneur, business owner, employee, or contractor, it doesn't really matter what your status is. If you have something that you've learned, a skill in life or a mindset or any type of knowledge, skill, or ability that you can offer to someone else, once you find the match, you'll just know it when you feel it. The conversation will flow naturally when you start asking them questions and listening to them. I hope that.
Great advice, Cheri. Absolutely, of course it does. Absolutely great advice. Now, I'd like to ask you about the two loves of your life, which I happen to know are living with you. Give me the names of the pups.
Oh, yeah, I thought we might have a compromising situation there for a moment. You're talking about my wiener dogs. See, that's a cybersecurity joke. That's not a data breach. No, my two wiener dogs. I have two adorable dachshunds. They're almost 8 years old, and their names they're from the South, so they have to have two names. It's Peggy Jean and Pinky Rose, also known as PJ and Pinky. And yes, they do live with me, both of them, and they share my bed. They take it over, actually. Funny.
I know we can't have a conversation without including the two loves of your life. So there. Now, how long have you had them?
Well, I got them in 2010, and yeah, they've grown up fast.
Don't they all? Well, Cheri, I want to thank you. I'll tell you what. It's been a pleasure talking with you. I know you're super busy, and I know that you're at another government installation, so I'm not going to keep you too much longer. But I do want to say thank you for everything you've done. I'm curious to see how you're going to go forward. I'm anxious to see Safe Harbor become a reality and a huge thing because so many people really need it. Now, are you looking for any corporate sponsorship for Safe Harbor?
Absolutely. And they can contact me on LinkedIn. Yeah, they can contact me on LinkedIn, or in the near future we'll have a website up for that as well.
Sounds good. And on LinkedIn it's Cheri, Cheri, and then Sigmon, Sigmon. And I would recommend that you get a hold of Cheri. She's amazing in so many ways and is truly a world-class mentor to so many. And about to be for a whole bunch more. Now, as we wrap it up, first of all, I want to thank you, Cheri. Is there any last words you want to leave to someone?
I want to suggest that you follow your heart. Don't chase the money. Whatever you're doing in life, just follow your heart. And when you find something that feels right, go with that. Don't chase the money. That'll come. But find what you love doing and do that, whatever that is.
Love it. Yeah, it's got to be a passion, or else you'll never really be happy. By the way, so I want to thank you for being on the World Class Mentors, and we are looking for guests to share their story, honor their mentors, and pay it forward by honoring your mentor and sharing what you are leaving as your legacy. So in order to find our application to be a guest, go to the worldclassmentors.com and apply today. Cheri, thank you so much for sharing your time. Can't tell you how much I love you. Thank you again. And I look forward to seeing you soon, too, I hope.
It sounds great. Thank you so much, Tony. Appreciate it. And thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Support for this podcast and the following messages comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, proud to support the many Texas businesses who make safety their number one priority in the workplace. More information about safety-focused workers' comp available at WorksafeTexas.com.